Welcome to a new form of video assignment. You are encouraged to take notes along the way if you would like, and also know that at different points throughout the assignment you are going to get questions to answer. If you did not put in your actual name at the beginning, would you please send me an email that has the name that you signed up with as well as your name so I know who to give credit for each assignment response. Thank you very much, and here we go. The FBI tracks crime statistics in our country. That makes a lot of sense. For 2010, 2011, 2012, they have published the different categories. These are synopses of several different types of crimes. You can see they're holding pretty steady as far as how often these crimes are occurring. Obviously, police and FBI need to investigate these crimes, and we as a society want them to have parameters or guidelines to limit them on these investigations and to guide them in that effort. That is why we have the Fourth Amendment. The Fourth Amendment says the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrants shall issue but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. We are going to pick through certain phrases of this amendment as the Supreme Court has explained or interpreted them. But basically an overall statement about the Fourth Amendment. Why do we have it? It sets limits on the government's ability to investigate and arrest. This amendment is not telling the people what they should do. It's telling the government that it needs to respect the rights of the people in these areas, our rights as people. So let's look at the breakdown of what this means. The first word we're going to break down, as the Supreme Court has determined over many, many cases, is unreasonable. The first piece of a requirement for something to be unreasonable is it has to regulate a government action. The government has to be the one doing a search or a seizure, not your mom, not your dad. For the Fourth Amendment to apply, it's not a teacher, not a school. It has to be the government. Police, FBI, Homeland Security. It has to be a government action. In general, so most of the time, the investigating agency, for most of the case, most of the time I'm just going to say police, but I mean the investigating agency, has to have a warrant. And most of the time, with very few exceptions, without a warrant, it would be an unreasonable search, and the Fourth Amendment would be violated. Alright, there's a thing called the exclusionary rule, and some of you might remember this from Mapp versus Ohio. The exclusionary rule means that if evidence is gathered and it's in violation of the Fourth Amendment, it cannot be used at a trial. Basically, what that means in plain English is if a search was conducted or a seizure was made and it was not in line with this amendment, if something was done without a warrant and it was needed, if it was an illegal search, any evidence gathered from or connected to that search is not admissible. Another way of calling that or describing that is called fruit of the poisonous tree. Anything related to an illegal search has to be thrown out too. And that's really tricky for the police, because if they went in and they had an illegal search and they learned about something through that illegal search and they want to try to do something about that evidence that they found, they have to prove to a judge later that they were able to come up with a different way that had nothing ever to do, not even the idea of the crime, had to do with anything that was a part of that illegal search. So police and all law enforcement agents take this very seriously, because it's extremely difficult once something is tainted or connected to an illegal search. It's really hard to get around that. The next key point is called the balance test. And the balance test determines if a search or seizure is reasonable by balancing an individual's right to privacy and security against society's interests of security. So basically, it used to be, like before 9/11, it was easier to say a person's privacy was more important than society's security. And now that has definitely shifted. We don't have as much privacy as we did prior to 9/11. What do we mean by this? Well, if you had to have a blood test from a DWI, that's been determined as reasonable. It's not that much of an invasion of privacy, and we're making sure that society is safe from drunk drivers. Let's say you're at part of the crime, maybe a witness, and there's a bullet in you that's needed as evidence. If it's a 2-hour risky surgery to take that bullet out, that might be unreasonable. It's violating your privacy. And so society is going to have to be found secure a different way. So we can't infringe on people too much, but we do infringe on them more than we did prior to 9/11. Our next keyword is search. Technically, a search is an action by the government that violates a reasonable expectation of privacy. Okay? Reasonable expectation of privacy is a hugely important phrase. We're going to talk about it a lot, or you'll hear it a lot, or see it referenced a lot in regards to the Fourth Amendment. People have a reasonable expectation of privacy in their homes, in their stuff as you're walking around most of the time. There are some exceptions. If you have a chain link fence and a person can walk by, or a police officer could walk by and see through that chain link fence, you don't have any reasonable expectation of privacy. But if you had a let's go 7 foot fence, and it was one of those staggered board fences, so you can't see through it unless, say, a police officer gets a ladder and climbs the ladder and looks over. That action is requiring an extra measure, that ladder climb. So it's violating your reasonable expectation of privacy. Your garbage, the Supreme Court has actually ruled on garbage. If you have a trash can and it's in your garage and you put all your trash in, it's still covered with your house as needing a warrant. But the minute you roll your trash can to the curb or into your alley, you are relinquishing your right. You are giving up your right to a reasonable expectation of privacy in your trash, and your trash can be searched without a warrant. Windows. If you have a window covering and you can't look through it from the street or anything like that, that's a reasonable expectation of privacy. But if a police officer walked up and peeked through a hole, or climbed something to look into a window and peek around a corner, that could be a violation of a reasonable expectation of privacy. If something has public exposure, like garbage or open fields or abandoned properties, those do not have a reasonable expectation of privacy, and they are not protected by the Fourth Amendment. Abandoned buildings can be searched, and open fields can be searched. So be aware with that. The Supreme Court has also noted that if someone has obtained a status of overnight guest, they are allowed protection under the Fourth Amendment. So if person A is staying over at person B's house for the night, like let's say you go over to a friend's house, you're going to do a project and you're going to stay over at their house to sleep over and then go to school the next day, you are considered a protected person in that house. So you have Fourth Amendment privileges, and warrants need to be issued to search your place or your stuff. If you are simply visiting for a couple of hours, the same warrants may not be needed to search your things depending upon the circumstance. That's because you're considered to be a short-term visitor. Strange, I know. Okay, our next one is seizures. Seizures means to take something, to seize it. Okay, it's a substantial interference with a person or their belongings. When you don't feel free to leave or terminate the encounter, your person could be seized. There's a big difference between saying, "Come with me," versus, "Will you please come with me?" Okay, TV ramps this one up all the time, and really they show a lot of seizure that probably wouldn't be okay in the real world. It usually involves some sort of force or submission to authority. Now, everybody feels nervous when they're talking to the police, so simply talking to the police is not a seizure. Sorry about that. But going to the police station with a demand to go there, that could be a seizure of your person. To take your belongings, that would be another seizure. Most of the time, in order to take your belongings, there needs to be a warrant. We have a few exceptions. We'll talk about those. Okay. For warrants, if you have a warrant, the first thing you need to know is warrants have to be issued by a judge. And so a police officer has to go to a judge and give them information that they believe shows that there is probable cause. That means it is more likely than not that, based on the information given, what they are looking for will be found. Okay, more likely than not, a reasonable person would say, yes, based on this, it is probable that whatever you're looking for will be there. The information has to be quality information. It has to be neutral evidence. It can't just be a an anonymous tip, for example. Okay, it has to be more than that. The warrant also has to particularly describe the place to be searched or the persons or things to be seized. If it's your house, it has to show your address. If you have an attached garage, simply saying the dwelling would be enough. If you have a detached garage, it has to say the house and the garage. So if you had outbuildings, it would need to say the outbuildings. If you have vehicles that are not in the garage, they would have to have the VIN numbers of the vehicles on the property or license plates in order to search them. So they have to specifically say what they're looking for and where they're going to look. The exceptions for needing a warrant, the first one is a border search. If you're crossing from the United States into Canada, for example, the United States Customs agents do not need any warrant to completely rip apart and search your car. By the way, they don't have to help you put it back together either. So please be careful on border searches. Airports. Airports don't need searches or don't need warrants for searches either. If they suspect something, they could do a strip search based on a dog sitting down next to you, a drug dog. If you had residual transfer from, let's say you were coming back from Amsterdam and someone was smoking pot next to you and you had residual transfer on your clothes and you traveled back in those same clothes and you didn't admit to it and they didn't believe you, you could end up with a full body cavity search with no warrant needed. Very uncomfortable. Be careful at airports. Be smart. Firefighting. If in the course of fighting a fire, the police or the firefighters find something that's illegal, that is done in the course of duty and they don't need a warrant. So if a neighbor's house is used in fighting a fire and something illegal is found, too bad for the neighbor, I guess. And consent search. If someone consents or says yes, they allow themselves to be searched, that would be another reason that searches or that warrants are not issued. Another one is called a plain view search. If something is in plain view, if a police officer can see it, if an officer spots something in plain view, they don't need a search warrant to seize it. For a plain view search to be legal, the officer must be in a place that he or she has the right to be in, and the object that is seized must be plainly visible in the location. Then there's search incident to arrest. If a suspect has been legally arrested, the police may search in the defendant's area, or they may search the defendant and in the area within their immediate control. So if it's in a car, anywhere they could have touched on their person, in their stuff, no warrant is necessary as long as the defendant and the thing has some sort of connection. And finally, what's called a protective sweep search. Following an arrest, the police can make protective sweep searches if they reasonably believe that a dangerous accomplice may be in hiding in an area where the defendant was arrested. To do so, the police are allowed to walk through a residence and do a cursory visual inspection without a warrant. If evidence of or related to anything related to the criminal activity is in plain view, that can be legally seized. But remember, they're looking for accomplices. An accomplice is not going to be hiding in a drawer. So if something is found in a drawer on a protective sweep search, that's unreasonable. Could a person be hiding in a closet? Absolutely. So then if something is found in plain view in a closet while they're looking for the accomplice, that's totally fine as well. So no warrants are needed. at borders, in airports, during firefighting. If someone gives